So, should you focus on your strengths or should you focus on your weaknesses? Hi, y'all. Thanks so much for joining me. In less than 15 minutes, I'll be sharing with you the answer to this big question because it is something that is really important for each and every one of us. And yes, my focus is on business owners, entrepreneurs, but it can also be relevant for you, depending on what your career is as well. And please like and share this video if you get value from it. I'm Dr. P. I'm a strategic business coach. I've been a school psychologist for about 10 years, K-12 schools in the US. And I've served on professional organization committees and taught at the master's level graduate psychology courses, right? And this question, like I mentioned, is something that I've heard entrepreneurs ask. And we're talking about their business, we're talking about things that they're struggling in, things they're looking to do, wanting to do in the future, looking at their strategic plan and really, looking at their day-to-day tasks and things that they've already done that worked for them, and then other things they wanted to do, right? And then this question comes up, like, this thing is not something I'm good at, but I'm keeping at it because I know it's going to pay off for me. But is it really where you should be focusing your energy if you've realized you've done all these things and it might be an area that you're not so good in? Should you continue focusing your time, energy, and effort on it? So for me, when I'm having this conversation with business owners, it really hits me because it reminds me of being a school psychologist. And for being a school psychologist, a huge part of it involves doing assessments and doing evaluations, right? As well as some database decision making. And when I'm thinking about the activities that I did for those specific roles that were a part of my school psychology practice, they focus on finding the problem, finding the solution, implementing the solution, and then monitoring that solution for effectiveness. So basically whether or not it was working, right? So that sounds great, right? It really did. But there was a part within all of that that I realized something that was causing a lot of issues for people, right? A lot of issues for the team. And even in terms of issues for the outcome and the rate of progress that a student was making, or a group of students were making, or a whole school was making, there was something, that I was like, something isn't adding up here. And it was not so obvious at first, and I find that interesting given the fact that doing the evaluation, looking for problems, finding the solution for that problem, right? And then it hit me one day while I was reviewing some records for a student as part of their reevaluation, because students in special education in the U.S. get a reevaluation every 3 years, right? Part of the federal law requirement. So for this particular student, I was going through that process of reviewing the existing records, and I was looking at what has been done so far for this student and realized, oh my gosh, they've really identified some weaknesses the student has been having and these goals that were developed to address and improve that area of weakness. But here's the thing though, that student, despite all the years of being in special education, despite the fact that they've identified the student's weaknesses, the student still was not making progress at the rate that was expected given the scientifically based, evidence-based intervention, that was being implemented. Students still wasn't making that progress. So it really occurred to me that that lack of rate of positive progress had a lot to do with the fact that it was just the students' weaknesses that were being targeted. There was nothing in the plan that was looking at the strengths, and it is a weird concept within special education. People tend to focus on improving the weaknesses rather than looking at maintaining and building up the strengths. So in this particular instant, what I did was, when I was finishing my evaluation, at the end of my report, I did include some activities, some strategies that you could do to help maintain and improve the student's area of strength. Why? Because the student's strengths are the student's strengths, just that you have your own strengths. And when you work on your strengths and you improve them, you get better at things. And you also learn this thing called compensating for your weaker areas, and you see more progress. You experience by far more successes. So that's why for me, I decided, hey, I am going to focus on this student's strengths. And I remember sharing this with my team, and that team, that was the first time that they were hearing about this strength-based approach to looking at how you can support students with disabilities. And there were a few people on the team that weren't really buying into it. But here's something I did. I decided I'm going to show them, hey, if we know the student's strengths, you know that section where we have to look at the accommodations and modifications to really help the student with moving forward? That's where we can focus on their strengths. We can use those strengths to help identify the most appropriate accommodations, the most appropriate modifications, so the student and any other student can be making that progress towards those goals that we identify. So when we're looking at those specific objectives, we can see how the student is making progress, right? And when I did it like that, I got those team members who are kind of, against it and even on the fence on board with, oh my gosh, this is a different way of looking at how you can help a student move forward. So you're probably like, what the hell does this have to do anything with being a business owner? And here's how it has to relate to being a business owner. As an entrepreneur, you may or you may not know the things that you're good at. I've come across entrepreneurs that, they don't miss a beat to tell me, I've already done my strength-based assessment. I already know what my strengths are, and it's like, okay, great. But are you using those strengths on the activities that you need to be doing so you can be moving forward? Then I get a different response. What? I know my strengths, but no, I don't know which activities. And that's where I'm like, this is where I can help you as a coach, because once you know your strengths, you have to attach those strengths to those activities that you are going to be by far more successful in doing. And not a lot of people know which activities they should be attaching to which strengths. And some of you might already know it, because you might be able to rattle off the activities you can do with your eyes closed, and you can take off with those things. And those are those areas of strength for you, right? When it comes to those areas of weakness, those are the areas that give you the most difficulty when you're looking at making growth. And think of it this way. Think of that skill that you've been trying to improve. You went to a webinar, you went to workshops, you went to seminars, you've taken tons of courses, but yet you're finding yourself not making improvement in this area. And you're like, what the hell, why am I not making this improvement? Because you spend so much time, energy, and effort, on this skill, this area of weakness. You've spent a lot of money too going to all of these things, but you're still not improving. And you're not improving because it's an area of weakness for you. Now, if you had taken that time, energy, and effort and done some continuous learning in an area of strength for you, you'll be seeing by far more progress in what you're making on a day-to-day basis in the activities for your business. I'm telling you, it's a huge, huge difference. Just like when I was working as a school psychologist and showing my team that, hey, if we focus on the child's strengths, we're going to start to see the child make those improvements, is the same thing for me when working with entrepreneurs. Let's focus on your strengths so we can keep you moving forward. Because when you focus on your weaknesses, you're going to be hitting your head up against the wall. This morning I was actually in a networking session, and the gentleman was doing the networking session with, he was talking about his strengths and his weaknesses, and he mentioned, hey, he does not have all those skills, to even drive a hammer onto a nail. He can't do that, right? That's not his area, but his siblings can do it. So he was like, oh my gosh, should I really be focusing on, can I do this skill? Can I do this skill? But what happens in the meantime, that frustration, that stress, that anger, that aggravation, and you're trying to improve on something you're not so good at. But when you shift the focus, when he shifted the focus on things he was good at, he started to make so much strides, and he just came to peace with the fact that there's some things you can't do. And it's the same thing as a business owner. There are going to be things that you can't do. Don't freak out about the fact you can't do all of them. As a business owner, yeah, you got to be aware of different things, but that doesn't mean you have to know how to do all of them. And it really doesn't mean that you have to be an expert in all of those areas, right? So to truly be a leader, if you're looking at hiring a team, what I highly recommend is you look at hiring team members, not only who can bring those skills that you're looking for to do specific tasks in your business, but also who are bringing certain strengths to the table that you don't have. Because think of it like a puzzle. You got some pieces, and those are your strengths. They have some other pieces. Those are their strengths. When you put it together, you put your puzzle together. And you're going to have that strong foundation for you guys to be moving forward when you look at taking team members on board who have different strengths, different skill sets to you. And if you don't already have a team in place, if you already have a team in place, do you know what the strengths are for your team members? And if you don't know, I highly recommend that you find out. If you do, it is great that you already know this, right? Because if you don't know the skill sets your team has to bring, then you could be missing out hugely on what your team can do. You might also have certain tasks assigned to team members that are really pulling on their weaknesses, not necessarily their strengths. So when you learn your team, when you learn their skill set, you learn their strengths, you learn their weaknesses, again, with the puzzle pieces, they go and they fit together, and it becomes an amazing thing when you have that strong foundation, right? So there are some different ways where you can go and you can find out your individual strengths, your weaknesses. Like I mentioned, some people take some personality tests, some people take some strengths finder assessments. Those things are great. What makes it even better is when you're able to attach and align your strengths to the skills and the actions that you need to be taken in your business. Same thing with your team members. When you become familiar with their type, their personality type, their strengths, you are better able to position them into doing tasks and actions for the business to help the business with moving forward. And you guys are going to start to see it in the revenue that you generate, because when you have everybody working toward their strengths, then you are going to have efficient operations, you're going to have productivity, and you're going to start to see that in your revenue for your business. So if you haven't already found out what your strengths are, I highly recommend you find out what your strengths are. There are a lot of informal assessments online that you can go find out, that you could go use, or you can work with a coach to help you with identifying the best one for you to take, and then helping you with interpreting the results of it, so that way you can align the results with what your goals are and vision are for your business, so you can truly be putting your time, energy, and effort into those actions that are connected to your strengths to help move your business forward. And if you have team members, do the same thing with your team members. And if you're looking to create a team, again, do the same thing with your team. The coach can help you with navigating all that information. It doesn't have to be long term. It can just be a short term situation, just so you can make sure, hey, if you got to do some reorganizing and restructuring, then you do that. Oh, and before I forget, another good thing for knowing the strengths and weaknesses of your team members is you're better able to delegate tasks. Because there might be some tasks on your plate right now that you're trying to juggle and balance and figure out, but it's so frustrating, you're banging your head against the wall because you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this. But you might have a team member who that is an area of strength for them. So learn to delegate that task, that action, that activity to that team member who has that strength. So that way you guys can get that action done and you can move on to the next one. So thank you so very much for joining me. Remember, solutions plus actions equals results. I'm Dr. Priscilla Kucer with Priscilla Kucer Consulting Solutions. Focus on your strengths. Bye, y'all.